What would you do if a billionaire accused you of kidnapping his child just moments after you saved that boy's life? On a freezing Boston morning, nurse Claire Bennett thought she was doing the right thing when she knelt beside a shivering little boy alone on the sidewalk. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where he came from. But she knew he was hurt, scared, and completely alone. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have imagined, was that the child's father was none other than Nathaniel Whitaker, one of the most feared and powerful tycoons in the country. And when his black SUV screeched to a halt and he saw her with his son, everything exploded. That one act of compassion pulled Claire into a whirlwind of secrets, grief and high-stakes emotion where kindness is questioned. Love is dangerous and the truth might cost more than either of them is ready to pay. But sometimes the greatest risks lead to the most unexpected redemption. Stay with us because what begins as a misunderstanding on a frozen sidewalk will become a story of healing, scandal, sacrifice, and a love no one saw coming. The wind cut through the Boston streets like a knife that morning. Claire Bennett, bundled in her worn coat, hurried across Beacon Street, clutching her coffee and her ID badge from Brookline General. Her shift had already started 15 minutes ago, but her mother, Margaret, had suffered another fainting spell that morning, and Claire couldn't just leave her alone. Every second of her life felt like a choice between duty and survival. Then she saw him, a small boy curled up on the frozen sidewalk in front of a closed pastry shop. Maybe 7 years old, shivering, violently clothed, dirty, one sleeve torn, and a faint cut on his elbow, leaking blood. Claire froze, torn between urgency and instinct. People passed by. No one stopped. But she did. "Hey there, sweetheart," she whispered, kneeling. "Are you hurt?" He didn't answer. His small frame trembled under the weight of invisible fears, tears streaking his cheeks. Claire reached into her bag. Her hands moved quickly, cleaning the cut with gentle precision. The boy watched her silently, as if memorizing her face. There was something in his eyes, something far too heavy for a child. Then it happened. A black Escalade screeched to a halt behind her. The passenger door flew open and a sharply dressed man leapt out, his expression thunderous. His gaze locked on the boy and then on Claire. "Lucas," he barked, storming forward. The child flinched, but Claire instinctively placed her hand between them. "Who are you?" the man demanded, voice ice cold. His eyes flicked to the ID badge on her coat. "What are you doing with my son?" Before Claire could explain, a security guard from the car reached for her arm, misunderstanding the scene. Lucas, however, clung to her desperately. "No, don't hurt her," the boy shouted. "She helped me." The man Nathaniel Whitaker, billionaire tycoon, feared and admired in equal measure, hesitated. For the first time in a long while, uncertainty clouded his usually commanding eyes. He crouched beside Lucas, inspecting him for injury. His fingers paused on the child's wrist, where a faint scar, an old one, peeked beneath the sleeve. A mirror image of the one his late wife had. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Claire, still kneeling calmly, raised her hands. "I'm a nurse. I found him here. He was bleeding alone, terrified. I couldn't just walk away." She offered her first aid kit as proof, then slowly pulled out her badge. Nathaniel took it without a word. Their eyes met hers, calm but firm, his sharp but troubled. "You shouldn't have touched him," he said coldly, but not convincingly. "I didn't touch him," Claire replied. "I helped him." Lucas spoke again, softer this time. "She was nice, like Mom used to be." Those words shattered something in the air. Nathaniel blinked. For the first time, he truly looked at Claire, past her plain clothes, past the tangled bun and the worn sneakers, and into the woman behind the gesture. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. His guard stepped back at his signal. Before stepping into the car, Nathaniel looked at her again. "I'm Nathaniel Whitaker." Claire's breath caught. Everyone in Boston knew that name. Hotels, tech empires, boardroom feuds, cold-blooded deals. But no one ever spoke of him having a child or a heart. The Escalade door slammed shut. The SUV pulled away, tires whispering against the frost-bitten asphalt. Claire stood there for a long moment, her pulse still thundering in her ears. Later that evening, as she rummaged through her coat pocket, something fluttered to the floor, a photograph. An old one creased at the edges. Claire frowned. It wasn't hers. The photo showed a younger woman smiling beside a hospital bed, and behind her unmistakably stood Nathaniel Whitaker. The patient in the bed, pale, frail, but smiling, was someone Claire remembered. Her name had been Isabel Whitaker. Claire swallowed hard. That face haunted her once in another hospital years ago. And now her child had called her mom. 2 days passed. At Brookline General, Claire was on her pediatric rounds when a voice came over the intercom. "Nurse Bennett, please report to reception." She wiped her hands on her scrubs and hurried over. There, waiting near the front desk, stood Nathaniel Whitaker, and Lucas smiling. "I need a favor," Nathaniel said bluntly. "Lucas hasn't stopped talking about you. He trusts you. That doesn't happen often. I'd like to ask if you could continue seeing him for checkups." Claire hesitated. "Of course," she finally said, "if it helps." Lucas ran forward, wrapping his arms around her waist. Claire's heart twisted. Nathaniel stood behind them, silent, watching, not as a billionaire, not as a tycoon, but as a man clinging to something he wasn't ready to name. But Claire had no idea. Someone was watching them. From a car parked across the street, a figure snapped a photo with a long lens camera. And somewhere in a high-rise boardroom, a whisper began. "She's getting too close. We're just getting started. Sorry to interrupt this moment, but we hope you'll understand." Do you believe Claire did the right thing, stepping in, even if it meant risking trouble with someone like Nathaniel? And what do you think Nathaniel is hiding from his past? Tell us where you're watching from, and if this story touched your heart, please tap the heart and like this video to help us reach others with stories that matter. Claire hadn't expected to see him again, not like this. It was a rainy Thursday when Nathaniel Whitaker returned to Brookline General Hospital this time. Not as a storm barreling through her life, but something else, something quieter. He stood at the reception desk, his tailored coat dripping from the cold drizzle outside, with Lucas by his side, now clean, better dressed, and smiling. It didn't fit with the image Boston tabloids had painted of the cold-blooded billionaire. And yet there he was. "I need your help," Nathaniel said simply, as if this were a business deal. Claire blinked. "With Lucas, he's asked for you. Repeatedly. He hasn't done that since Nathaniel stopped himself. He trusts you. I can't ignore that." Claire looked down at the boy who grinned and held out a small drawing. It was a childlike sketch of him, Claire, and someone else, a woman with long dark hair. "My mom," Lucas said softly. Claire's throat tightened. From that day, Claire began to see Lucas more regularly during checkups, hospital walks, and quiet moments in the children's wing garden. She learned how he hated thunderstorms but loved reading about space, how he sometimes woke up screaming from dreams he couldn't explain, and how he missed a mother who died too soon. Nathaniel watched these interactions from the shadows at first, always present but never fully stepping in, until one day he did. Claire was walking down the hospital corridor when she saw him waiting outside the pediatric ward, eyes distant, hands clenched. "You look like you've been through a war," she said gently. Nathaniel exhaled, rubbing his face. "Every boardroom meeting feels like one lately. And now I've got investors whispering about distractions." Claire arched a brow. "You mean me?" "I mean this," he snapped, then caught himself. "You, Lucas, all of it. They think it's weakening me." She crossed her arms. "And is it?" He hesitated. "No, it's grounding me. But they don't see it that way." That night, he showed up at her Beacon Hill apartment unannounced. Claire had just finished cooking soup for Margaret when she heard the knock. Opening the door, she found Nathaniel drenched in rain suit, clinging to him, eyes raw. "I don't want to be alone tonight," he whispered. "I'm tired of pretending I have it all under control." Claire let him in without a word. They sat on the couch in silence, the storm outside echoing the storm inside him. And then, without warning, he told her everything. The kidnapping. The media had never known. But years ago, Lucas had been taken for ransom. Though they got him back unharmed, something in him had changed. He stopped speaking for weeks. Isabel, Nathaniel's wife, had crumbled under the weight of it. And when she passed away, Lucas stopped smiling altogether. "I failed them both," he whispered. "And now, I don't know how to fix any of it." Claire took his hand. "You don't fix grief, Nathaniel. You carry it, but you don't have to carry it alone." Just as the air softened between them, a knock came at the door again. Margaret peeked in. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of Nathaniel, but she said nothing, just offered him tea and quietly returned to her room. Claire could feel the weight of it, two worlds beginning to blend in a space far too fragile. But not everyone wanted those worlds to merge. The next morning, Claire opened her mailbox to find a single envelope. No return address. Inside, a printed photo of her and Lucas in the hospital garden with a message scrawled in red ink. "You're playing a dangerous game. Leave him, or he'll lose more than just his reputation. Her hands trembled. She didn't tell Nathaniel. Instead, she buried it beneath the sink, convincing herself it was a one-off, a sick joke. But then came the whispers at the hospital, the sideways glances. A nurse confided in her that someone from the Whitaker board had called asking about her background. Claire's stomach twisted. She knew exactly what this was. Someone powerful was watching, and they wanted her gone. One afternoon during a session with Lucas, Claire noticed he looked pale, withdrawn. He stared at her hands and whispered, "Do you think my mom would have liked you?" The question caught her off guard. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I would have liked her." Lucas smiled faintly, then added, "She had a nickname for me. Little Alex. You said that once. You called me that." Claire froze. She had said it days ago, without thinking. It slipped from her lips like second nature. But how? Why would she? That night as she lay awake, memories resurfaced. Years ago, ICU rotation. A woman young fading had once clutched her hand and whispered, "Promise me, if anything happens, someone will be kind to him." Her name had been Isabel Whitaker. Claire shot up in bed, heart pounding. This wasn't chance. "Sorry to pause the story here, but we hope you understand. Do you think Claire should reveal the truth to Nathaniel now, before it's too late? And who do you think is behind the threatening note? Tell us where you're watching from, and if this story is keeping you hooked, please tap the heart and like this video to support more stories like this." The storm came faster than anyone expected. Within days of Claire's realization about Isabel Whitaker's last words, and the mysterious letter rumors exploded across Boston's high society. Online gossip sites published blurry photos of Nathaniel and Claire together outside the hospital. Headlines screamed billionaire heir in secret romance with nurse gold digger or guardian angel Brookline. General received anonymous complaints. Claire was summoned by hospital administration for a formal review of her conduct. Someone was trying to destroy her, and yet Nathaniel remained silent. That silence hurt more than the headlines. Claire didn't know that on the other side of town, Nathaniel was fighting his own war. His board of directors, once loyal, now questioned his every move. Investors threatened to pull funding. One of his oldest advisors, Harold Vexley, confronted him directly. "She's a liability," Vexley warned. "The more you cling to her, the more we all suffer." But Nathaniel wasn't the same man he was months ago. He had changed because of her, because of Lucas. So he stood before his board and made a choice that stunned everyone. At a press conference meant for launching a new development, Nathaniel veered off script. He adjusted the microphone, met the eyes of the cameras, and said, "Today was supposed to be about profit projections and quarterly goals. But I have something more important to say. A woman named Claire Bennett once knelt on a freezing sidewalk to help my son when I was too blinded by fear and pride to see what he needed. She didn't ask for recognition. She didn't ask for anything, but she gave us both more than I ever could have expected." Reporters fell silent. "She is not a scandal. She is not a headline. She is the reason my son laughs again. And she is the reason I'm learning to be more than just a man with power. I'm learning how to be a father." The statement made waves across every media outlet in the country. But Claire didn't hear it live. She was at home packing. After her meeting with hospital admin, she'd made the painful decision to resign. Margaret watched from the couch, concern lining her face. "Sometimes love isn't enough," Claire whispered, "especially when the world refuses to believe in it." Then a knock. Claire opened the door, and there stood Nathaniel, breathless, his tie crooked, his hair slightly disheveled. Behind him, Lucas clutched a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. "You're not leaving," Nathaniel said. "Not like this." Claire stared at him, unsure whether to cry or slam the door. He stepped inside without waiting for permission. "There's something else you don't know," he said, pulling a worn photograph from his coat pocket. It was the same photo Claire had seen weeks ago, Isabel in a hospital bed, Claire at her side. "She told me once," Nathaniel said, voice tight, "that if she didn't make it, she hoped someone with a heart would help raise our son. Not someone rich, not someone powerful, someone kind." Claire swallowed the lump rising in her throat. "I didn't remember you at first," he continued, "but I remember now. You were there at the end. You were the one holding her hand when I couldn't." That night, everything changed. Nathaniel stayed for dinner. He helped Margaret with her medications. He watched Claire and Lucas draw pictures on the living room rug. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to just be no boardrooms, no cameras, no pressure. Just a man with a second chance. Still, the past lingered. A few weeks later, an anonymous source leaked false bank statements accusing Claire of receiving gifts from Nathaniel in exchange for emotional manipulation. It was the final blow. Or so they thought. Nathaniel called a full press event. This time, he didn't just defend Claire. He introduced her to everyone. This is the woman I'm choosing to build a future with. Not because of what she lacks, but because of what she's full of grace, courage, and love. Months passed. The media eventually moved on. Whispers quieted. The world forgot what it had tried so hard to destroy. But one snowy afternoon in a private garden at Beacon Hill, beneath string lights and soft piano music, Nathaniel knelt before Claire. "I don't have a perfect world to offer you," he said, "but I have something real, and I want to spend the rest of my life building it with you." Claire didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said through tears, 1,000 times yes. The ceremony was simple, just close friends Margaret in a soft blue dress, and Lucas beaming in his tiny tuxedo as the ring bearer. The boy who once sat alone on a cold sidewalk was now surrounded by warmth. A family. Together. And as the snow fell gently over Boston, Claire looked around and realized something extraordinary. It had all begun with a single act of kindness and ended in love. Now let us ask you something. Do you believe that love, when grounded in truth and kindness, can survive even the harshest judgment? And if you were in Nathaniel's place, would you have risked your empire to protect the person who saved your heart? Tell us what you thought of this story. Type number 3 in the comments if you loved it, number 2 if it felt just okay, and number 1 if it didn't quite hit the mark for you. We'd love to know where you're watching from, and please tap that heart and share the story if it moved you the way it moved us to tell it.